Got Dad headed out to the field in the combine. Everything greased up on it. The boss decided it didn't need blown off today, so I'm a lot cleaner than I would be normally, other than this sweatshirt has seen a lot of bean dust in the last week and a half. It's Thursday, October 15th. Did I say that? We've got a little bit of corn on the grain cart in the shed here that didn't fit on the wagon that I loaded in the field and spilled some on last night. So we're going to dump the grain cart into this wagon, get it into the bin, and then he's got a couple of empty or almost empty wagons on the field right now. So we can get started, but I'm going to get the grain cart empty and then get it and this wagon moved out there as well. What's on here should fit comfortably on the wagon. It's an 875 grain cart. Wagons are 550, and I filled one and topped off another one last night, so it's probably just going to be a little dab here. We're already down below that lower window on the cart, and we're good to go. So we'll close up the gate. If you see the little yellow thing going down there. Before I pull this out to the field, I need to grease the auger bearings and stuff on this. They haven't been greased since preseason, which we don't run a ton of bushels through the cart since we've been doing beans mostly, but probably should grease those again to make sure we don't have problems down the road. My hope is that since we're on the 13-inch auger now, I'll be able to keep up a little better with him using 3-wagon rotation, but we're going to pull this out here so he has it to dump onto if he needs it. So we decided to do this the safe way. You also can sort of crawl, like go up the ladder and crawl out the auger. I think this one's pretty hard to get to even doing that though. The one on the top you can crawl out the auger for. So what we're gonna grease, this is a grease zerk. We're gonna squirt some grease in there. There's a bearing inside this metal piece with some metal balls inside, and we want some lubrication on that so that it stays nice and tight. Just gonna kind of look things over a little bit while we're up here as well. I've not noticed any problems with anything, but always worth taking a look at stuff. Also, I'm going to go ahead and grease the drive line. So there's a swivel joint in here and a swivel joint in here that we'll grease, and then there's also some bearings on the shaft that goes back down to the gearbox, and I guess a universal joint down there as well. That kind of just grease everything up. There also are some grease zerks on this pin, the tube there that where the auger pivots up, and there's a bearing on top of the auger, and I think that's all of them, but we'll try to get everything greased up, and then this should be good to go. Probably for the rest of the season. We might grease it one more time because it will be seeing more bushels since we're going to be on corn, but some of the stuff is going straight into the bins, and we might just use the wagons for a lot of that. So just to show you what we're working on here, this is what's called the universal joint. So it allows basically a drive line to transmit power without being perfectly straight. So in the middle here, there's a grease zerk that's covered in muck at the moment. If I can hold this with my knee. Usually whenever we grease stuff, we'll wipe it off with a rag first to kind of get the dirt off of the grease zerk. That way you're not pushing dirt into the bearing or the joint that you're trying to lubricate. With these, there's a set of bearings, like needle bearings, basically little tiny metal rods inside each of the four corners or four ends of the cross there. So we got the grease gun tip onto the zerk, and then we'll pump some grease in until it kind of squeezes out on the corners here. There we go. And you can see it's oozing out a little bit because I'm not on the zerk very well at the moment. This tip might also be about worn out. So usually when you get full, you'll kind of hear it crackle, which is basically pushing the old grease out, and so you can see, pull the grease gun off. So we're starting to get grease out back here. I don't know if it's going to show up. But, so now we've got grease into all those joints, and then we'll hook this back up to the tractor PTO shaft, which is power takeoff is what that stands for. Basically just a way to transmit power to implements. In this case, this is 1,000 RPM, which is basically the nominal speed that it turns 1,000 times a minute. And we have, I believe, 21 spleens. This is a large diameter. There's also a small 1,000, or 540 is common, which would be 6 spleens, but normally that's used on smaller tractors. Basically, with the 540, if you have too much horsepower, you can break things. So power is a combination of speed and torque. So lower speed for a given power transmission is more torque, and you need heavier stuff. So normally big tractors will have only the 1,000 and often the large 1,000 on most newer stuff. So I ended up moving the auger a little bit from where it was. It seemed like we were too far that way, probably running over the spreader. I'm gonna crawl up and see exactly how the grain flow is hitting that spreader. Hopefully, since I've got a full load, I'll be able to get up there, push things over, and get back down before the wagon is empty. Well, the way it looks, I think probably need to pull the auger away from the bed a little bit, because all the grain is coming off the back side of the spout, so it's going down that way, and I think it's pulling heavy to that direction, because you're basically, the grain has some bias to that direction, so when the chute is over, the chute is spun that direction, more grain flows, and when it's going this way, and the grain is kind of changing direction a little bit, I think. So I went ahead and pulled the auger out just a little bit. Basically, what's going in that bin is what's left here. So probably about the time that I get the thing in the right spot, we're going to be done. But try to do it right. Probably we'll end up dumping a load or two in the middle to shovel it out level, so that we only have to move it 21 feet instead of 42 from one side to the other. Probably not as good as it's gonna get. Might as well do a little wide angle shot while we're up here, I guess. See Dad out there with the combine. Wagon at the other end of the field. And wagon over here. Well, wagon at the end of the field over here. Wagon going into the auger. It's really amazing how much this auger flexes down when it's full. Maybe you should tighten up these cables a little more, because when it's empty, this will be well out of the hole. Probably flexing at least 2 feet. Just got another load in here. I'm gonna crawl in and see how we're doing. It looks like we're high over here. So this would be the auger, would be coming up over in this area. You can see we're right below this line of bolts, that ring over here. So actually the edges aren't really too bad. I mean, we're within a foot, it looks like, unless it's higher. Yeah, maybe 18 inches. Definitely high here. I don't know if that's from the stuff that I dumped last night where it wasn't hitting well, or if it's still throwing high to this side. But I guess probably what we'll end up trying to do is dump a load or two in the middle so that we have a peak that we can shovel out and try to get it leveled out. We want that to be basically an even height so that you have even resistance to the airflow from the fan and can get air through all of the corn, because right now, since we have a big hump right here, there's probably more air coming through this side where the corn is shorter as opposed to this area, which this is going in fairly dry. We got into a different variety that's a little bit wetter, but we're still like 16.5% on everything, I think. So we don't really need to take very much moisture out of what's in here. Joys of grain spreaders, I guess. Got moved over to the other field now, so this is where we were working a week and a half ago before we switched to beans. Got 500 bushels on the grain cart, moved to the truck, so Dad's got some space and 2 empty wagons. I've got a wagon still at the home farm with corn on it that I need to get into the big bin. Then I need to switch the auger back to the 36 foot. And probably about the exact same time as when the truck will be full and I'll have to get it taken to town. Plus I'll have wagons full to get hauled back. So it's going to be an action-packed rest of the afternoon, I think. Well, it's been a sort of action-packed past few hours. Unfortunately, I left the camera in the wrong place. Got the auger set up. We're back set up with the other bin, I think. We're going to find out when we dump this wagon load of corn behind me in here shortly. Sorry, intersection. The other sides have stop signs, but you never know around here. Had a snoot, so one of the pointed dividers that basically go down the rows of the corn broke on the corn head. Didn't run the snoot into the ground or anything else. It just, the metal fatigued and cracked and failed, I think. So we messed around for a little bit getting that welded back up, and then needed to get the other wagon, or sorry, the grain cart onto the truck, get the truck to town before the elevator closed. Kind of just made the time window for that, and now we're pulling wagons back to the bin site to go into the 36 foot bin. We'll finish the field that we're on over here tonight. Probably should tomorrow. Sounds like the elevator is going to be open on Saturday. And if we get a decent day running tomorrow and a decent day running Saturday, that should get done everything that has grain that has to go to town. I've still got, I think, about 55 acres or so in another field that we haven't even opened up yet, but that'll all be going into the bins, so that'll be pretty straightforward. And the bin's right at the field there. That's the one with the grain spreader that I've got to work on. Things are moving forward. Corn's pretty dry. Yield looks good. Where we're at right now is on some less than ideal dirt, but it is what it is. And still seems to be doing good for what it is, fertility or soil-wise at least. So, gonna get this into the bin hopefully before it gets too dark to see what I'm doing. And I've got 2 more, well, a full wagon and an almost full wagon at the field yet. So it'll probably be late summer. Well, one more minor adventure. Which, just as I turned the camera on, this got more interesting. So this is a chunk of the fan belt. Doesn't belong there. Dad found another piece kind of like this when he was fueling up. Fortunately, it's a double belt, so the other half was still there. The fan didn't stop turning. And I noticed it looked a little bit less than perfect a couple years ago and bought one but didn't put it on, so we had a belt hanging on the pegs back there. Getting the old one off was nice and easy. Getting the new one on is proving to be a little bit difficult. New belt is installed and ready to rock and roll for tomorrow. I did end up actually putting it around the crank pulley, the far pulley there first, and then was able to sort of finagle it around this arm for the tightener. So actually wasn't too bad. It is a very tight fit between the end of that pulley and the fan shroud though, so trying to get the belt twisted was not working. That's the kind of breakdowns we like, ones that we can fix and that didn't stop anything from moving. So this is our other fix-it job from earlier. Yeah, this is this side that was totally broken off. So this had been fixed once before with some scabby arc welding, but it cracked completely in two right through here. Managed to stick that back together and sort of reinforced it with another piece of steel on the back side. So basically cut some stuff away in this area to get another piece of steel back behind to sort of bridge that gap and weld it all together, which so far it's made it about 10 acres. Probably going to order a spare front snoot. All of the steel snoots on this are getting pretty worn, but probably it would be good to have one of those on hand. This one's, I think, probably the worst of any of them, but it doesn't take much to run that into the ground and bend it under, which we haven't done too much lately, thankfully, but probably might be a good thing to have on hand.